19 years ago, my daughter Tiffany left Sam on my doorstep and never looked back. Today, as we prepare to sign a multi-million-dollar acquisition for Sam's software, she's back with a suitcase and a lawsuit. She's filing for an emergency conservatorship, claiming I'm too old and Sam is just an asset she produced. She's acting like she's in charge, but she doesn't know what's inside my late husband's marine footlocker. It's not just metals in there, it's a receipt for the most disgusting transaction a mother ever made. Listen to the end to hear how I protected my boy, and subscribe for more of my stories. The cedar smell hits me first, the way it always does, sharp and clean, like something honest preserved against time. I have my late husband's footlocker open on the kitchen floor, its heavy brass latch folded back, and the morning is still quiet enough that I can hear the server humming behind the pantry door. A low, steady pulse, like a heartbeat. Like everything is fine. My knuckles ache. They always ache when the Ohio damp settles in before sunrise, a slow throb that starts in the first two joints of each finger and radiates toward the wrist. I've learned to work through it. 30 years managing IT infrastructure for the school district, pulling cable through drop ceilings, cold booting servers at 2 in the morning during ice storms, bypassing dead hardware with a patience born of necessity. You learn to work through a lot of things. I ease the secondary lock mechanism sideways with my thumb and forefinger, feeling the small steel pin release, and reach into the cedar dark interior. Sam's birth certificate is in a manila folder, tucked beneath his father's service ribbons and a photograph of Dale in his dress blues. I lift it carefully, two-handed, and carry it to the kitchen island where the light is better. My reading glasses are on their chain around my neck. I settle them onto my nose and scan the document edge to edge, the way I'd scan a file for corruption, every seal, every notarized stamp, every typed field. All intact. All clean. Today is Sam's 19th birthday. By 10 o'clock this morning, the acquisition lawyers are expecting this document and 3 others, and by the end of the week, the $3.2 million deal for the assistive speech software Sam and I built in this kitchen, on that laptop, over 3 years of midnight sessions and quiet Saturday afternoons, will be closed. Finalized. He's at his workstation in the corner now, the bluish light of his monitor catching the side of his face. He has Dale's jaw and my eyes, and he doesn't talk much, but that's why we built the software. He types, and the program speaks. He types, and the world finally has to listen. I allow myself one small, tight-lipped smile. Then the front door comes off the wall. The crack of it is not a knock. It is not an entrance. It is the sound of a wall being breached, wood frame shrieking, the hallway mirror rattling on its hook, the linoleum transmitting the vibration up through the soles of my loafers and into my already aching knees. I don't flinch. Dale used to say that the first thing combat does is try to steal your ability to think, and the only defense is to feel the shock fully and let it pass through you before you act. I've practiced that for 40 years. I stand slowly, vertebra by vertebra, my back going straight the way it always does when something requires my full attention. My hands press flat on the kitchen island. I listen. Heavy heels on hardwood. The sharp, triumphant jangle of keys being dropped, not set down, dropped, on my mahogany side table. And underneath it all, a scent that arrives before the person does, something expensive and synthetic, citrus and musk, the kind of perfume you buy to smell like success rather than because you like it. I know that perfume. I have not smelled it in 3 years. She fills the kitchen doorway the way a weather system fills a horizon, demanding, advancing, already certain of the damage she'll cause. Tiffany. My daughter. 43 years old and brittle with it, her power blazer hanging slightly wrong on shoulders that have grown too angular, her blonde hair showing a hard inch of dark roots at the part. She looks like a woman who made a bet on herself a long time ago and is only now beginning to understand she's going to lose. Behind her, a man I don't recognize lingers in the hallway with the precise stillness of someone who has been paid to be patient. A cheap suit, recently pressed. Eyes that move around my kitchen the way a home inspector's eyes move, not appreciating, assessing. Appraising the crown molding. Calculating the square footage. Tiffany wheels 2 oversized suitcases to the center of the kitchen island and leaves them there, the wheels scuffing a pale trail across the linoleum I waxed last Tuesday. She does not say good morning. She does not say anything at all. She simply stands in my kitchen and turns her head slowly, surveying the room with the particular satisfaction of someone who has already decided it belongs to them. The hair on my forearms rises. She still hasn't looked at Sam. He's 8 feet from her, sitting at his workstation in the kitchen corner, his headphones half on, his fingers paused above the keyboard. He has gone very still in the way he goes still when the sensory environment shifts without warning, a kind of internal bracing, a system preparing for impact. He is watching her from beneath his eyelashes. She does not return the courtesy. Her eyes have found the ruggedized laptop on the island, and they have locked onto it the way a scope locks onto a target. I watch her jaw tighten. I know that expression. I've watched it calcify over 4 decades, from the 14-year-old who wanted what her classmates had, to the 26-year-old who walked out of Sam's pediatric evaluation because the diagnosis was too inconvenient, to whatever she is standing in my kitchen right now. The same calculation. The same narrowing of the eyes. Only now she has a lawyer and a filing date, and the desperation has been compressed into something harder and more dangerous than simple greed. She circles the island. Her handbag swings. She is not here for a conversation. I'm here for my equity, mother. The word mother lands like a hand finding a bruise. She rests her fingers on the laptop's lid, those manicured nails, that performative possessiveness, and the gold hoops at her ears catch the fluorescent kitchen light and throw small, cold reflections across the ceiling. You and that glitch have been playing scientist in my childhood kitchen long enough. In the corner, Sam's hands begin to move. Not typing. A rhythmic motion, both hands, a pattern he uses when the noise around him becomes too large to process. He doesn't make a sound. He never makes a sound. That's why we built the software. I look at my daughter, at the frantic gleam behind her eyes, the same gleam I've seen in executives who have bet the wrong budget on a bad vendor and are 3 weeks from a board meeting, and I understand precisely what is happening. The deal hasn't closed. Not $1 has transferred. But she has already spent $3.2 million in her head. She has already moved into the penthouse. She is so far ahead of reality that she can't feel the gap beneath her feet. The man in the cheap suit moves. He doesn't knock or clear his throat or ask permission. He simply steps into my kitchen and thrusts a thick legal folder toward my chest, blue-backed and heavy, angled so that either I catch it or it hits the linoleum. I catch it. My hands are shaking, not from fear. From rage. There is a difference, and it lives in a different part of the chest. Mrs. Miller. His voice is a practiced, resonant baritone, calibrated to sound authoritative in front of judges and terrified relatives. We're here to ensure the estate is properly managed with appropriate professional oversight going forward. The faint surgical scar on my right wrist tingles. A phantom reflex from the carpal tunnel surgery in 2009, from years of typing through pain because the district servers didn't care about my inflammation. I grip the folder and feel the tingle and think, you have no idea what these hands have built. My IT brain doesn't read documents the way most people do. Most people start at the top, follow the language, get lost in the whereas and heretofores and come up for air halfway through not knowing what they've agreed to. I scan. I look for architecture. Keywords first, emergency petition. Ex parte. Conservatorship. Then the operative clauses, age-related cognitive decline. Incapacitated. Danger to his own financial interests. Then the date and jurisdiction stamp. Filed this morning. Cuyahoga County. The ink is still fresh enough that I can smell it, a faint chemical sharpness under all the citrus perfume. This is not a visit. This is a systems attack. They have gone around the front-end defenses, around me, around Sam's autonomy, around the decade of documented care and legal standing I've built, and found a procedural backdoor. An emergency conservatorship filing doesn't require my consent. It doesn't require Sam's consent. It requires only a sympathetic court and a well-worded petition, and by the time anyone reviews the actual evidence, the temporary order is already in place. My firewall is being breached from the inside. And I'm holding the breach documentation in my own 2 hands. Tiffany leans across the counter toward me. Close enough that I can confirm the mimosas on her breath beneath the expensive perfume, can see where her foundation has settled into the fine lines around her mouth. She is not whispering. She wants Sam to hear this. Sam shouldn't be in charge of a ham sandwich, let alone a multi-million-dollar patent. She straightens, and something in her face relaxes into a kind of satisfied cruelty, the expression of a woman who has been carrying a sentence for years and is finally delivering it. He's a mistake I'm finally going to cash in on. In the corner, Sam's hands flap faster. The rhythm has changed, shorter, sharper, distressed. He is hearing every word. He has always heard every word. The silence people mistake for absence is not absence, it is intake. It is processing. He is taking every syllable of what his mother just said and he is storing it somewhere deep in his architecture, and I know with a certainty that sits in the pit of my stomach like cold iron that this moment will cost him something. I set the folder down on the counter with a precise, quiet click. I move to the center of the kitchen and I plant myself. Both feet back straight, the military wife posture that 20 years of living with Dale's discipline built into my spine and that no amount of arthritis has been able to disassemble. I position my body between Tiffany and Sam's workstation with the deliberateness of someone configuring a network topology. This is the node you do not get to access. My steel blue eyes find hers and I hold the contact until she blinks. She blinks twice, actually, and the second one is involuntary. This is my house, Tiffany. My voice is quiet. I don't need volume. And this is his voice. I don't gesture toward the laptop, I don't need to. You are trespassing on both. For a moment, one small, clarifying moment, I see something flicker behind her eyes. Not guilt. Tiffany doesn't produce guilt, her psychology doesn't have that compiler. But something recalibrates. She had expected tears, maybe. Pleading. The predictable performance of an elderly woman being overwhelmed. She has not recalibrated for stillness. The attorney boyfriend breaks the moment before she can recover it. He checks his watch. Silver-toned, functional, the kind of watch a man wears to signal he has places to be that matter more than wherever he currently is. His smile is thin and practiced and doesn't reach the upper half of his face. Actually, Martha, he says, and the use of my first name is deliberate, a paperwork-level demotion. As of approximately 2 hours ago, the court granted a temporary suspension of your legal authority over Sam's person and assets. He taps the blue-backed folder with one polished fingertip. Until Monday's hearing, Tiffany is the designated temporary guardian of record. You are, effectively, a guest in this residence. I let that land. I let it move through me the way the shock of the door did, feel it fully, let it pass, stay vertical. A guest in this residence. My residence. The house Dale and I bought in 1994. The house where Sam was born and where I sat up 4 nights straight in 1998 reading everything I could find about autism spectrum disorder because the pediatrician couldn't give me useful information and I was going to build my own database if I had to. The house where the server hums behind the pantry door, running the backup systems I configured myself over the course of 15 years because I have always understood that the only security you can trust is the security you built. A guest. The systemic efficiency of it is, I will admit, almost impressive. They have used the law the way I use code, precisely, instrumentally, without sentiment. They have executed a clean exploit. What they don't know is that every system I've ever built has a backdoor. And I am the only one who knows where it is. I want to take them by their collars, his cheap suit lapels, her too loose blazer, and physically remove them from my home the way I would physically remove a compromised drive from a server rack. The impulse is immediate and animal and completely understandable. I have been a Marine's wife. I have hauled my own equipment. I am 68 years old, and my knees are stiff, and I could still do it. I don't. A physical altercation is the exact outcome they need. One call to 911, one domestic disturbance report, and every argument about unstable elderly caregiver writes itself. The attorney boyfriend is practically vibrating with the hope that I'll grab something. I can see it in the set of his shoulders, the way he's angled his body slightly toward his phone. I breathe. I process the variables. I am outmanned and legally outflanked. The court order is real. The temporary suspension is real. The attorney has, by the letter of the law, correctly stated my current status in this house. Current status. I lower my eyes to the folder on the counter. I let my shoulders drop a centimeter. I put a slight tremor in my hands, not difficult, the arthritis provides texture, and I allow my face to move into the expression of a woman absorbing too much at once. Confused. Diminished. Overwhelmed. Let them see what they want to see. It costs me nothing. My mind is already mapping the backdoor. Tiffany's smirk arrives like a weather forecast proving itself correct. She snaps the handle up on the first suitcase and begins wheeling it down the hallway toward the guest room with the proprietary confidence of someone who has just been handed a key. Her heels on the hardwood produce a sound, clack clack clack, that is methodical in the way of countdowns and dripping faucets and other things that mark time you'd rather stop. I stand at the kitchen island and I listen to the sound of her opening my guest room closet, the old bifold door with the slight catch at the top, the sound of designer garment bags being deposited over the clean linens I laundered on Sunday. Small violences. Territorial markings. I rest my fingers on the ruggedized laptop. The case is warm from the server's ambient heat, and the surface is textured with use, scuffed at the corners from years of being carried between the kitchen and Sam's bedroom and the county library and the acquisition lawyer's downtown office. This machine contains the software. Our software. 3 years of Sam's logic and my architecture and the specific, irreplaceable intelligence of a young man who thinks in structures most people will never access. She is not getting this machine. She is not getting him. In the corner, Sam has gone still again. His headphones are fully on now, and his eyes are on his monitor, but I can see the tension in his shoulders, that particular careful posture, the one that means he is managing something internally that would overwhelm most people externally. He is 19 years old today. He deserves a birthday that doesn't feel like this. I look at the cedar-lined footlocker still open on the kitchen floor, Sam's birth certificate on the island beside the legal folder, and I make a list in the precise, technical shorthand of my internal architecture, what I have access to, what I've lost access to, what they don't know exists. The siege has begun. The first layer has been compromised. But I built this system. I know every layer. I know where the archives are. The kitchen is quiet in the way that follows an intrusion, a charged, unnatural quiet, the silence of a room that has been rearranged by someone who doesn't belong in it. I can hear Tiffany in the guest room, the bifold closet door opening and closing, hangers scraping across the rod. The attorney boyfriend has positioned himself in the hallway with his phone and his posture, waiting. I sit at the kitchen island and open the ruggedized laptop. My fingers find the keys with the automatic confidence of muscle memory. 30 years of this, 30 years of knowing exactly where my hands belong. I pull up the email client. The acquisition lawyers need to know what's happening. We are 17 hours from the document submission window and I need to pulse a signal through the architecture before this goes any further. The loading wheel turns. Turns. Then the screen goes flat red. Access denied. I stare at it. 2 words. The color of a system failure, of a network that has been locked from the outside. I type my administrator credentials, the ones I created, the ones I've maintained since before Sam could walk, and hit enter. Access denied. I try again, slower, in case my arthritic fingers misread a character. Access denied. The reality assembles itself the way a diagnosis assembles itself, not all at once, but in sequence, each piece clicking into place with the cold logic of evidence. She used the court order. She used her next of kin status and the emergency filing to call the provider, and they, following procedure, following the letter of the temporary suspension, doing exactly what the system told them to do, performed a remote credential reset. She didn't need to know my password. She needed a lawyer and a filing date, and she had both. I built this system. I am the architect of every access point in this house. And I have been locked out of my own vault by a squatter with a legal hammer and a bedazzled phone. My hands are very still on the keyboard. I breathe. I do not allow my face to change. The hum of the house shifts. I notice it the way you notice a sound you've stopped consciously hearing, the server behind the pantry door, the HVAC cycle, the low-frequency background of a home that is alive and connected. I notice it because it drops. A subtle deceleration, like a pulse skipping, and then the Wi-Fi indicator on the laptop blinks once. Goes dark. I look up. Tiffany is at the wall-mounted smart home interface panel, the one I installed 4 years ago, the one with the hub controls I mapped myself, and her manicured thumb is still pressing the toggle. Disable external traffic. It's a setting I included for network security drills, for controlled isolation testing. It requires a 4-digit PIN I chose and never shared. She tosses her hair. The PIN is her birthday. Dale and I gave it to her in 1981, and I used it as a placeholder a decade ago and never changed it because I trusted the physical security of the house more than the social engineering vulnerability of a daughter I believed was gone from our lives. That was a miscalculation. I log it. The smirk on her face is the expression of a person who has just enjoyed the sound of a lock turning. No emails out. No VoIP calls. No connection to the acquisition lawyers, to my former colleagues, to the outside world. Sam and I are in a digital Faraday cage constructed from my own infrastructure, in the middle of a suburb, surrounded by neighbors who don't know what's happening inside these walls. She didn't need to be technical. She just needed access to my sentimental blind spot. I log that too. Sam needs his groceries. This is not optional. It is the structure of his day, the scaffolding of a routine that took years to build and that his nervous system depends on like a load-bearing wall. Gluten-free crackers, the specific brand in the green box. Almond milk, unsweetened, the one in the blue carton. 2 kinds of fruit, nothing with a strong smell. I know this list by heart. I have bought these items every Tuesday and Saturday for 3 years. I take my keys from the hook by the door without a word to either of them. The drive to Kroger is 11 minutes. I grip the steering wheel with both hands and watch the damp Ohio landscape scroll past, bare trees, gas stations, a church marquee, a school zone with the yellow lights blinking, and I build lists in my head. Assets. Liabilities. Access points. What I know. What they think I know. What they don't know I know. The store is warm and ordinary and completely indifferent to what is happening in my house. I move through the aisles with practiced efficiency, gathering the items, not allowing myself to think about the fact that I'm buying groceries under a temporary court order that has suspended my legal authority over my own grandson. I set the basket on the belt. The cashier, a teenager with earbuds in one ear, runs the items through without looking up. I swipe my debit card. Declined. I pull it out, check the strip, reinsert it. Declined. The cashier looks up now. Looks at me the way teenagers look at the elderly when something inconvenient occurs, a mixture of impatience and reflexive pity, an expression that says this is above my pay grade and also your problem. The person behind me in line shifts their weight. The cold starts in my stomach and radiates outward, a sharp, specific cold, the cold of being stripped in public, of standing in a fluorescent-lit grocery store unable to buy almond milk while $3.2 million sits in a holding pattern with lawyers who are currently unable to reach me. I put the card back in my wallet. I tell the cashier to hold the basket. I walk out to the parking lot. The payphone is mounted near the cart return, one of the last ones I know of in this part of the county, a relic that I have driven past for years without ever registering a reason to use it. The receiver is cold and heavier than I remember. I dial my bank's 800 number and navigate the automated system with the flat efficiency of a woman who has been configuring automated systems since before the person who designed this one was born. The recording is brief and courteous and final. Account status, frozen by court order. For inquiries, please contact. I hang up. I stand with the receiver against my palm and I look at the parking lot. A woman is loading groceries into an SUV. A man is walking a dog along the far edge of the pavement. The sky is that particular Ohio gray that is not quite overcast and not quite clear, a sky that has been withholding something for days. Temporary injunction. Protection of assets during conservatorship transition. The attorney boyfriend, I do not know his name and I will not give him the dignity of learning it until I need to use it against him, has been executing a parallel track. Not just the conservatorship petition. Not just the network lockout. He has gone to a second court, separately, and frozen every financial instrument attached to my name. Pension. Checking. The joint account that still technically carries both our names from 20 years ago when I was too busy caring for Sam to dissolve the paperwork. They are starving me out. They are using the law's own protective mechanisms, the same mechanisms designed to prevent the exploitation of vulnerable elderly people, to render me immobile and dependent. I cannot reach the lawyers. I cannot buy Sam's groceries. I cannot leave because I cannot fund leaving. And every hour I stand still, the Monday hearing gets closer. The cold in my stomach has become something else. Something that doesn't have a temperature. I get back in the car. The silver sedan is parked crookedly behind Tiffany's SUV when I pull into the driveway, its state-issued plates and the county seal on the door panel announcing its purpose with bureaucratic neutrality. A woman in a navy blazer stands on my porch. Lanyard. Clipboard. The measured, evaluative posture of someone who has been trained to observe rather than react. Adult Protective Services. I sit in my car for 3 seconds, my hands still on the wheel, and I make a choice about how to carry my body when I get out. Not slumped. Not aggressive. Measured. The posture of a woman who is tired and managing, which is, in fact, completely accurate. I get out of the car. Mrs. Miller? The investigator's eyes move over me with the practiced efficiency of her training, scanning for the physical indicators on her intake checklist, looking for the frailty that has been reported. She is not unkind. She is doing her job. That is precisely what makes her dangerous. Yes, I say. Come in. She leads me into my own pantry. The motion is routine for her. She does this every day, enters homes and navigates them, performs the physical inventory of a space with the calm authority of someone executing a protocol. For me, it is the sensation of watching a stranger open my refrigerator. Every step she takes through my kitchen is a quiet, clinical trespass. She reaches behind the stack of cereal boxes. The shelf where I keep spare light bulbs and the extra batteries for Sam's noise-canceling headphones. Her hand comes back with a brown plastic prescription bottle, the label faded to near illegibility, the orange of the plastic gone dusty with time. Dale's oxycodone. From his final months. High dosage, class 2, the kind of prescription that comes with a pharmacist's solemn expression and a reminder about storage requirements. I had thought I disposed of it. I had intended to dispose of it, in that period after his death when I was doing 17 things at once and Sam was 8 years old and the grief was something I managed the way I managed everything, by staying operational, by keeping the systems running, by not stopping long enough to feel the full weight of it. The bottle has been moved. The shelf has been disturbed. Someone knew exactly where to put it, and exactly how recently to put it there so that it wouldn't look planted. It looks like something that was shoved in a corner and forgotten. It looks precisely like the evidence of a woman who is not coping. We found this during the preliminary walk-through, Martha, the investigator says. Her voice is careful and neutral. She is not my enemy. She is a procedure. My stomach drops through the linoleum. Tiffany materializes in the pantry doorway with the timing of a stage direction. Her eyes are red-rimmed. Her mascara has been touched, not ruined, touched, enough to suggest distress without suggesting instability, the precise calibration of a woman who has thought carefully about what worried looks like in a fluorescent light. She holds a designer tissue. She has been crying about this for, would estimate, approximately 45 seconds. I just wanted her to get help. Her voice catches on the last word in a way that is technically convincing. She's been self-medicating for the arthritis. I found her slumped over the laptop yesterday. I didn't know what to do. I can't let her be alone with Sam like this. It's not safe. The investigator is writing. I watch the pen move and I think about the architecture of what is being constructed in that notepad. Concerned daughter. Elderly woman. Prescription narcotics. Unsupervised disabled adult. Each word a structural component, each sentence a load-bearing element in a case that will be presented to a court on Monday morning. Tiffany doesn't need to prove I'm impaired. She needs to create enough documented ambiguity that a judge will maintain the temporary order pending a full evaluation. She is not performing for me. She is performing for the clipboard. The stress lives in my hands. It always has. 30 years of keyboards and cable pulls and cold server rooms and the specific, repetitive strain of building systems with tools that were never designed for hands as stubborn as mine. All of it has left a chemical record in my joints that deploys without my permission when my cortisol levels spike. My knuckles swell. I watch it happen the way you watch a weather system develop on a radar screen, the redness traveling outward from the first joint, the fingers thickening, the range of motion narrowing. My hands betray me in the one moment I need them to be still. I reach for the counter to steady myself. My grip on a ceramic mug, Dale's mug, the one with the Marine Corps emblem that has lived on the second shelf of this pantry for 20 years, fails. The mug hits the linoleum with a sound like a single gunshot and shatters into 4 large pieces and a constellation of smaller ones. I look down at my hands. Swollen, red, trembling with the after effects of the adrenaline and the inflammatory response and the specific humiliation of a body that is 68 years old and cannot always be commanded. The hands that hard-coded the architecture of Sam's future. The hands that built the system. Shaking, in front of a clipboard and a court-appointed camera. Tiffany says nothing. She doesn't need to. The evidence has presented itself. The investigator leaves with the promise of a priority report and the formal hearing scheduled for Monday. I stand in the kitchen doorway and watch the silver sedan back out of the driveway and disappear around the corner, and then I listen to the specific silence that follows. The front door clicks shut. Tiffany's tears stop. Not gradually, not the way grief actually works, with its ragged diminishment and its involuntary residuals. They stop the way a performance stops when the audience has filed out. One moment, red-rimmed eyes, trembling lip, designer tissue pressed to the corner of her mouth. Next moment, nothing. A face as flat and calculating as a spreadsheet. She corners me between the island and the sink. The kitchen suddenly feels very narrow. Her perfume in the afternoon heat is cloying, floral, something that costs more than it's worth and announces itself too loudly, the olfactory equivalent of everything she is. That was just the opening act, Mom, she says. Her voice is quiet now. Not whispering, quiet. The specific quiet of someone who doesn't need volume because they believe they have already won. She leans in until I can see the place where her foundation ends at her jawline, until the scent of her perfume becomes the entire atmosphere. Let's skip the drama. Her eyes don't move from mine. Sign over the IP rights and the voluntary guardianship today. I'll unfreeze enough of your pension to get you into a nice, quiet assisted living facility. The kind with gardens and a library. A beat. You like libraries. She presents it as mercy. As a reasonable accommodation. As the logical conclusion of a process that has already been set in motion by forces beyond both our control. I look at her face, at the heart-shaped structure of it, at the high cheekbones that she got from Dale's mother, at the eyes that are brown where mine are blue and that have always been calculating even when she was young enough for it to look like ambition, and I feel something I have not allowed myself to feel in a long time. Not rage. Rage is hot and fast and makes you sloppy. What I feel is colder and slower and more structural, the recognition of a threat that I should have anticipated and didn't, and the simultaneous, clarifying knowledge that I am the only person who is going to dismantle it. I say nothing. My silence does something to her face. The mask shifts, and what's underneath is not rage, not yet, but the precursor to it, the dark pressurized thing that precedes a narcissistic eruption, the moment when the performance of control begins to fail. Fine. The word is bitten off, a door slamming. Have it your way. But if you don't sign by Monday morning, I will have the court institutionalize Sam. She lets it land. Watches my face. A state-run psychiatric ward. You know how he handles loud noises and strangers. New people, new smells, new routines. He won't last a week before they sedate him. The threat travels through me differently than the legal filing did. The filing was a system attack, cold, procedural, designed to exploit institutional mechanisms. This is something else. This is a woman who has identified the one undefended perimeter in my entire architecture and pointed a weapon at it. Sam's sanity. Sam's safety. The specific, irreplaceable fragility of a nervous system that has learned, over 19 years, to navigate a world that was not designed for it, and that has done so by building structure, routine, and the digital voice that lets him speak. She is threatening to take him somewhere where none of that exists. I hold her gaze. I do not let my face move. Every bit of the Marine wife training, every year of the poker face I developed in boardrooms full of men who expected me to flinch, I use all of it, right now, to give her nothing. In the corner, Sam has stopped typing. I notice it the way I noticed the server hum, because the absence of it changes the room. He has drawn himself into the ergonomic chair, knees up, arms folded, the specific architecture of a person reducing their physical footprint in response to a perceived threat. His eyes are fixed on a point on the floor approximately 2 feet in front of him. He rocks, a small, rhythmic motion, backward and forward, the metronome of his internal management system working hard against the external chaos. He heard every word. He hears everything. He always has. I look at my grandson, this boy who was born into a body that the world called broken and who has, with my partnership and his own extraordinary intelligence, built a way to speak that will outlast both of us, and I look at my daughter standing between me and the rest of the house, her chin raised, waiting for my surrender. She doesn't just want the money. She never just wanted the money. She wants the proof that she mattered, that Sam, that I, that this entire architecture of quiet, stubborn, underfunded love, was ultimately hers to dispose of. She is not going to get it. But I need to get to the archives. I need the backdoor. I need to operate from somewhere she cannot see me operating. I lower my eyes. I let my hands rest on the counter, trembling and red and visibly compromised. I breathe like a woman who has reached her limit. I give her what she wants to see. And I begin to plan. The basement stairs creak under my weight in the specific sequence I've known for 20 years, 3rd step, then 7th, the groan of old wood that Dale always meant to fix and never did. I descend slowly, one hand on the cold metal railing, my knees protesting the angle. The basement smells of concrete and time, of the particular damp that Ohio winters drive into the foundation of houses like this one, and underneath that, something older and more familiar, the faint ghost of hardware that has been waiting. The tarp is in the corner where I left it 3 years ago, gray with dust, draped over a shape that Tiffany's attorney and his packet sniffers would have catalogued as junk. Old equipment. Decommissioned infrastructure. The kind of thing a woman keeps because she can't bring herself to throw it away, or doesn't know what she has. I know exactly what I have. I lift the tarp with both hands, the dust releasing in a small cloud that I breathe through without flinching, and uncover the terminal, a legacy station from my last year with the district, a machine I brought home when they cycled the hardware because I knew, the way I always know, that a system you control completely is worth more than a system that is newer and faster and belongs to someone else. It is hardwired. Not routed through the smart hub. Not connected to the wireless infrastructure that Tiffany's thumb disabled with a pin she should never have been able to guess. Copper wire. The old way. The way that doesn't show up on modern traffic monitoring because no one is looking for it anymore. My swollen fingers find the mechanical toggle on the side panel. I feel the resistance, the familiar stiffness of a switch that hasn't been thrown in years, and I press through it. The machine wakes up slowly, the way old machines do, reluctant, then committed, the screen warming from black to the amber glow of a system that predates everything Tiffany brought into this house. I sit down on the metal folding chair I keep down here and I let out one breath I've been holding since this morning. The smart hub killed the wireless. It did not kill the copper. I navigate the terminal's interface with the practiced fluency of someone who learned to type before graphical interfaces existed, who built her first network with physical patch cables and a laminated diagram taped to a cinder block wall. The modem handshake initiates, that sound, that screaming, rhythmic negotiation of protocols, a dial-up connection wailing its way into the phone line, and in the damp basement of my suburban Ohio home, it sounds like exactly what it is. A battle cry. It is slow. Agonizingly, almost comically slow, the internet connection of 1997 running through the bones of a house that has spent the last decade operating at gigabit speeds. I don't care. I am not running video. I am not streaming. I am transmitting a compressed file, the logs of Tiffany's unauthorized network access, the time-stamped credential resets, the packet data from the smart hub toggle, the financial freeze documentation, packaged tight and encrypted and addressed to a contact at the DA's office who owes me a debt that has nothing to do with money. We went to Columbus State together. She was a criminal justice major who couldn't pass her computer science requirement until I tutored her through it for a semester. She has been a prosecutor for 19 years. She has my encrypted contact key because I gave it to her 6 years ago when she asked me to consult on a digital evidence case, and she told me then, "Martha, if you ever need the system to notice something, you tell me and I will make it notice." I am transmitting the data. I hit send. I wait. The cursor blinks. The amber glow of the screen is the only light in the basement, and I am 68 years old, sitting on a folding chair in a damp room, watching a cursor blink, and I am the calmest I have been in 2 days. This is my native environment. Not the kitchen with the fluorescent lights and the APS investigator and the shattering mug. Here, in the dark, with hardware and protocols and the fundamental architecture of information moving through wire, here I know exactly what I'm doing and exactly what I'm worth. The cursor blinks. Then, green. ACK. 1 line. 3 letters. The Universal Protocol Acknowledgement, message received, transmission confirmed, the system has heard you. In the architecture of digital communication, it is the smallest possible signal. In this basement, at this moment, it is everything. I press my back against the cold concrete wall and allow myself to feel something I haven't permitted in 48 hours, the sharp, intoxicating rush of hope. It moves through my chest like the first good coffee of the morning. Sharp. Real. Mine. She received the packet. She is looking at the logs. A prosecutor with 19 years of experience is looking at the digital evidence of Tiffany's unauthorized access, her coordinated legal fraud, the financial instruments deployed to isolate and starve an elderly woman and her disabled grandson. The law is a system. I have fed it the correct input. For the first time since the front door came off the wall, I close my eyes for a full 3 seconds. The basement door opens. I know it before I hear it, a change in the air pressure, the faint warmth from the kitchen above cutting through the damp, and then the creak of the door and the sliver of kitchen light cutting down the stairs like a blade. I don't move. Tiffany stands at the top of the stairs. She's holding her tablet, and the screen is pulsing red, a warm, rhythmic alert, like a heartbeat finding a target. Her silhouette against the kitchen light is sharp and still, the specific stillness of a person who has been waiting to be right. Nice try, mother. The words come down the stairs with a melodic cruelty that she has honed since adolescence, that particular edge she deploys when she wants you to understand not just that you've failed but that she enjoyed watching you try. She descends slowly. The heels click on the stone steps, each one deliberate, each one measured to communicate that she is not hurrying because she doesn't need to. I watch her come. She stops 3 steps from the bottom. She looks at the terminal with the expression of a woman who expected something impressive and found something pitiful, a performed contempt that I recognize as the specific register she uses when she is threatened by something she doesn't fully understand and needs to diminish before it can grow. Did you really think your little spy games would work? She tilts the tablet toward me. On the screen, a geotagged photograph. 2 men at what looks like a golf club bar, the soft focus of afternoon light and expensive whiskey glasses, their postures relaxed, their expressions the self-satisfied ease of people who are certain the world is arranged in their favor. One of them is the attorney boyfriend. The other one I know. I have known him for 22 years. We sat in the same computer lab at Columbus State. I tutored him through 2 required courses. I gave him my encrypted contact key. They've been friends since law school, Tiffany says. My attorney mentioned you might reach out to her. He thought it was sweet. She taps the screen. The ACK you received went to his private server. He flagged your packet and forwarded it to me. A small, satisfied pause. You've been playing checkers, Mom. We've been playing chess. The hope in my chest doesn't dissolve slowly. It drops, the way a connection drops, one moment present, then gone, the absence immediate and total. What replaces it is cold and heavy and sits in my stomach the way bad news always sits, with a permanence that has no argument. I showed my hand. I used my only backdoor. And they were watching the exit. She turns and goes back up the stairs, and I watch the shift in her body as she ascends, the way the controlled performance falls away and what's underneath comes forward, raw and hot and without architecture. The concerned daughter persona has a weight limit, and she has reached it. I hear her voice in the kitchen before I clear the stairs, a high, vicious pitch bouncing off the tiles, the kind of sound that has no calculation in it, only the kinetic release of a person who is done pretending. You just can't play nice, can you? My knees scream on every step. My hands grope the railing. I am moving as fast as my body allows, and it is not fast enough, and I know it is not fast enough, and the knowledge is its own particular torture, the gap between the speed my mind operates at and the speed my body can execute, a gap that has been widening for years and that Tiffany has, with precise cruelty, identified as the space she fits into. I reach the kitchen. She is already at Sam's workstation. He is frozen in his chair, his eyes very wide, his hands flat on the desk in the posture of a person who has gone completely still because movement feels dangerous. He is looking at his screen. He is not looking at her. He is doing what he does when the environment becomes hostile beyond the threshold of processing. He goes to the last safe internal room and he closes the door. She reaches past him and takes the tablet out of his hands. He gasps, a small, sharp intake of breath, barely audible, the sound of something being taken that was so integrated into his functioning that its absence is physical. His hands stay in the position the tablet occupied for a half-second after it's gone, fingers curved around nothing. Tiffany holds it above her head like a trophy, her knuckles white against the ruggedized casing, and looks at me with the expression of a person who has found the one thing that cannot be protected and is about to destroy it in front of an audience of one. He's a mistake I'm finally cashing in on. The shriek of it fills the kitchen, distorts off the tile, hits me in the sternum. She brings it down. The sound of the custom tablet hitting the linoleum is a metallic crunch that I feel in my back teeth, the specific register of precision-engineered hardware meeting a surface it was not designed to meet, the end of something built to last. The ruggedized casing, designed to Sam's specifications, tested against every kind of accidental drop and fumble and sensory episode that his body produces, holds for the first impact. She lifts her foot. Her designer heel comes down on the screen. Once. The glass fractures. Twice. The fracture becomes a collapse. 3 times, with the concentrated force of a woman who is not satisfied with damage, who needs annihilation, who needs the evidence of her own power to be visible and complete and irreversible. The silence after the third impact is the loudest thing I have ever heard. Shattered glass and snapping silicon on the linoleum. The ruggedized casing bent backward at an angle it was never meant to achieve. The screen, the interface that Sam and I spent 400 hours calibrating, that speaks in the voice modulation he selected himself because it sounded, he typed to me once, like what I'd sound like if I could, is a heap of dead components and jagged edges. His voice is on the floor. And I am standing 6 feet away and I did not stop it. Sam does not rock. He makes a sound, one sound, high-pitched and strangled and absolute, a sound with no words in it because there are no words for this, because the thing that makes words possible is gone, and then he goes rigid. His gaze fixes on the wreckage on the floor. His hands, which were reaching for the air where the tablet was, settle at his sides. His face closes. I have seen Sam in distress. I have sat with him through sensory overloads and meltdowns and the grinding, invisible labor of navigating a world that misreads him at every turn. I have learned to read the degrees of his internal weather. This is not distress. This is beyond the edge of the map. His mother, the woman whose existence is a biological fact he has learned to file away as irrelevant because the alternative is too structurally destabilizing, has just destroyed the one artifact that translated his interior life into the exterior world. And she did it with the specific brutality of someone who wanted him to see that she could. The light in his eyes is not dimmed. It is gone. He is somewhere I cannot reach from outside, and I do not know how far in he has gone or how long it will take him to surface, and the not knowing is a weight on my sternum that makes it difficult to breathe. I stand in the wreckage and I feel, for approximately 4 seconds, the specific paralysis of a system that has been so completely overwhelmed that it cannot execute any function. 4 seconds. The engine outside is heavy and deliberate, a town car, not a sedan, the kind of vehicle that communicates institutional authority without police urgency. I hear it before I see it, the tires on the gravel of my driveway, the engine idling down. Through the kitchen window, a black car. A woman stepping out, silver briefcase, a professional bearing that announces itself across a parking lot. The court-appointed evaluator. Tiffany hears it too. I watch the transformation happen in real time, the rage draining from her face the way water drains from a tilted basin, the red flush receding, the set of her jewelry structuring from vicious to bereaved. She smooths her hair with both hands. She presses her fingers gently beneath her eyes, redistributing the mascara into something that reads as recent tears rather than calculated performance. She straightens her blazer. By the time her hand is on the front doorknob, she is a grieving daughter again. She is a woman at the end of her rope, doing what she has to do for the people she loves. The performance takes her 11 seconds. I counted. I turn and look at my kitchen. Glass on the linoleum. Sam's tablet in pieces at the base of his workstation. My grandson rigid and unreachable in his ergonomic chair, his gaze fixed on the middle distance. My own hands, red and swollen, trembling with the residual adrenaline of the last 10 minutes. No network access. No money. No attorney. No digital evidence trail. The only packet I transmitted went directly to the attorney boyfriend's private server, and they have it now, which means they know what I had and they know I've used it. The kitchen is a disaster zone. And in 30 seconds, a court-appointed evaluator is going to walk through my front door and perform an emergency competency assessment. I am 68 years old. I am broke. I am isolated. My hands look exactly like the evidence of a woman who is failing. My only witness is unresponsive on a chair, and his voice is in fragments on my linoleum. Every procedural resource I tried to access has either been frozen or turned against me. If I were auditing this system, I would call it total failure. Every variable inverted. Every exit blocked. I am exactly what Tiffany needs the evaluator to see. The knock at the front door is sharp and professional, 3 evenly spaced impacts, the knock of someone who has done this many times and understands that the sound of authority should be unambiguous. Tiffany moves down the hallway, and I hear the soft theater of her voice. Thank you so much for coming. I'm so glad someone is taking this seriously. I stand in the center of the kitchen ruins and I look at the hallway. The marine footlocker is there, where I left it this morning, the brass latch folded back, the cedar dark interior waiting. I left it when the door came off the wall. I didn't close it. I've been moving through the crisis the way you move through any system failure, reactive, responding to what's immediately critical, addressing what's bleeding. I never went back to close the footlocker. It is the last thing in this house that hasn't been compromised. The evaluator's voice joins Tiffany's in the hallway, measured, professional, the voice of a woman preparing to assess and document and recommend. Her footsteps are moving toward the kitchen. I have perhaps 20 seconds before she enters this room and begins forming the impressions that will become the formal record. I close my eyes. Not to retreat. To purge. 1 full second of deliberate internal silence, the cognitive equivalent of a hard reset, clearing the panic, the grief, the rage, the 4-second paralysis, and finding underneath all of it the cold, hard bedrock of what I actually know. I know this house. I built its systems. I have been archiving its truth for decades, in formats and locations that no one else knew to look for, because I am a systems administrator and a Marine's wife, and I have always known, at some foundational level, that the day might come when the only thing standing between my family and catastrophe would be the records I kept when no one was watching. Dale's footlocker. The documents I never moved. The archive I never closed. The cold logic finds the next variable, and the next, and the next. I open my eyes. The evaluator is stepping through my kitchen doorway, her silver briefcase in hand, her professional gaze moving across the room with the practiced assessment of someone cataloging evidence. Tiffany is 2 steps behind her, her red-rimmed eyes wide with performed anguish. I straighten my back. Hold the line. The evaluator moves through the doorway like a weather system that has been doing this long enough to stop being surprised by anything. Charcoal suit. Silver briefcase. A face assembled over years of suburban catastrophe into something that no longer registers shock as shock, only as data. Her eyes make 1 full sweep of the kitchen, the glass on the linoleum, the ruined tablet at the base of Sam's workstation, Sam himself rigid and unreachable in his chair, his gaze fixed on the middle distance. Then they move to me. She opens her portfolio. Uncaps her pen. The scratching starts. I know what she's writing because I know what she sees, an elderly woman standing in a disaster zone, hands visibly swollen, face drawn, surrounded by the wreckage of a disabled young man's only communication device. I know the form she's filling out. I know the checkbox categories. I administered enough district technology budgets to understand how institutions process the appearance of a situation versus the reality of one, and right now the appearance is not in my favor. I breathe. I hold the line. I wait. Tiffany doesn't wait. She lunges into the silence the way she's always lunged into silences, filling them before anyone else can, claiming the narrative the way she used to claim the last word in an argument, the way she claimed the guest room this morning. Her voice goes to a high, jagged tremolo that I have heard exactly twice before in my life. Once when she was 15 and wanted me to believe she hadn't forged a hall pass, and once when she was 26 and wanted a social worker to believe she was overwhelmed rather than absent. She just snapped. She points at the ruined tablet with a trembling finger, her nail catching the kitchen light. I tried to talk to her about the pills, and she threw Sam's tablet at the wall. She's volatile. She's destroying the only way he can communicate, and I can't. A practice break in the voice. A breath. I can't let her do this to him. The evaluator looks at the smashed hardware. Then at my hands. Then back to Tiffany, whose eyes are producing, on cue, the specific glassiness of recent grief. Her expression shifts. Clinical to grimly certain. She writes something with a faster hand. I watch all of this from the center of the room, and I do not speak. I turn my back on Tiffany. Not out of dismissal, though it is that, too, but because the hallway is what matters now, and the hallway is where the footlocker is, and the footlocker has been sitting open since this morning with its brass latch folded back and its cedar dark truth waiting for me to come back and finish what I started before the door came off the wall. I walk. My knees pop on the second step, a sound like a knuckle cracking, audible in the quiet kitchen, and I feel every year of the arthritis with each footfall on the hardwood, but my back is straight. The posture that Dale's life built into my spine and that nothing has been able to disassemble. The phantom weight of every year I've spent holding a system together, this house, this family, this impossible, essential boy, settles across my shoulders like a familiar tool. Tiffany is performing behind me. I can hear her, the catch in her breath, the strategic wobble in her voice, but I don't turn around. I've been a Marine's wife long enough to know that you don't look at the thing that wants your attention. You look at the objective. The footlocker is in the hallway, 10 feet from the kitchen door. I reach it. I kneel, slowly, the pressure in my joints compressing into a dull roar that I file under operational costs and manage. I place my palms flat against the lid. I am not a victim. I am an administrator. I am accessing the core archive. My hands have been shaking since the mug hit the linoleum. I stop them now. Not with breath, not with counting, with will. The specific, agonizing application of pure intent against the body's physical distress, the kind of discipline that is not born in a yoga class or a self-help book but in decades of doing difficult, precise work through pain and grief and the accumulated weight of a life that required more from these hands than hands should reasonably be asked to give. The trembling subsides. Not completely. But enough. I don't go for the main latch. That's the visible entry point, the one they've already inventoried in their heads, the one that holds Sam's birth certificate and the paperwork I was processing this morning when this all began. I go for the hinges. The left one first, 3 fingers, specific sequence, the heel of my palm applying pressure at an angle that requires knowing the mechanism rather than forcing it. Then the right, mirroring the motion. Dale showed me this before his last deployment. Martha, he said, in the way he said things when he wanted me to understand they were important, there's a bottom. I thought he meant it metaphorically. He didn't. With a heavy, muffled clunk, the sound of a secondary latch releasing from inside the wood, the floor of the footlocker drops a half-inch and pivots. The false bottom. Behind me, I hear Tiffany's breath catch. The sound of greed activating, of a mind pivoting from performance to inventory. She thinks there's jewelry. Cash. Something she can liquidate. She thinks that because she has never understood that the things worth protecting are never the things that shine. I pull out a single sheet of legal bond paper in a sealed plastic document sleeve. The paper has gone yellow at the edges with 11 years of careful storage. The ink is faded but legible. The signatures are unmistakable. I know both of them, one intimately, one in the way you know a handwriting that you watched develop from a child's first cursive efforts into an adult's careless scrawl. At the bottom of the page, next to Tiffany's signature, is a thumbprint in faded purple ink. An extra step I insisted on, that she dismissed as my paranoid admin nonsense, that she provided with the impatient magnanimity of a 23-year-old who needed $100 and considered the paperwork a minor inconvenience. I run my thumb over the embossed notary seal. She was 23. Sam was 8 days old. She had been in my house for less than 2 weeks after he was born, had already told me twice that she couldn't do this, had already started leaving him in the bassinet for hours at a time while she made phone calls in the other room. When she came to me and said she needed money for moving expenses, the specific euphemism of a woman who has decided to leave and needs you to fund her exit, I told her to sit at the kitchen table. I drew up the document myself. She read it. She signed it. She pressed her thumb to the ink pad I produced from the desk drawer where I keep the notary stamp I've had since 1994. She took the $100 and she got on a Greyhound and she did not look back. She has been gone for 11 years. She has been so thoroughly gone that she forgot the morning she sold her parental rights for a bus ticket. I don't forget anything. I stand. My knees voice their objection and I override them. I walk back into the kitchen with the document sleeve in my hand and I cross the room and I place it on the portfolio in front of the evaluator. Section 4, Paragraph B, I say. My voice is level and technical and completely devoid of the emotion that is currently occupying approximately 40% of my available processing capacity. I have routed it to a background process. It can run when this is over. Please read the operative clause. The evaluator looks at me. Then she looks down at the document. Her eyes move across the page with the trained speed of a professional reader, and I watch the moment she reaches paragraph B. I know exactly where it is on the page. I drafted it, because her eyes stop moving. She reads it again. Her expression does not change, but something in the set of her jaw does, a very small recalibration. She reads it aloud, her voice automatic. In exchange for the sum of $100, the undersigning party agrees to the permanent and irrevocable transfer of all parental and guardianship rights to Martha and Miller, to be held in perpetuity and without challenge. The room goes ice cold. Tiffany makes a sound. Not a word, a sound. The specific, involuntary output of a system encountering data it cannot integrate, a mind running a process that has just returned an unexpected error. She has built the last 72 hours on a legal standing that she signed away 11 years ago for a Greyhound ticket and a week of cheap motels, and she has just heard that foundation dissolve out loud. The evaluator looks at her. Then at me. Then back at the document. She writes something. Her handwriting has changed, faster, sharper, the penmanship of someone who has just reclassified the situation they're in. I move to the bookshelf. It is a motion I have planned for 14 hours, since the moment in the basement when the ACK came through and I understood that the digital route had been compromised and I began reconstructing the architecture from first principles. The back door through the DA's office was one layer. It failed. But systems administrators do not build systems with one layer. The dictionary is on the second shelf, Webster's, the 1987 edition, the one that has been in this house since before Sam was born. I pull it out. It is heavier than a dictionary should be, because it hasn't been a dictionary for 6 years. I cut the interior out myself on a Sunday afternoon when I decided I needed a physical off-network storage point that would not appear on any device inventory. Inside, a small, unassuming black box. A backup synthesizer module, standalone, battery-powered, not connected to the smart hub or the home network or any system that Tiffany's attorney could have inventoried or frozen. I built it as a black box recorder for the house's intercom system, hardwired to a passive audio collection function that has been running since the week Sam and I installed the first version of the speech software. It records everything that passes through the intercom nodes. Every room. Every conversation. 3 years of retention. My thumb finds the physical toggle. I don't need a screen to navigate this. I know the circuitry the way I know the footlocker hinges, not from memory but from authorship. I reach into the pantry, my pantry, the one where someone planted Dale's oxycodone this morning, the one the APS investigator walked through with her clipboard, and retrieve the phone I tucked behind the flour jars 4 hours ago. It is a backup handset, a number not registered to my name, prepaid, purchased at a Walgreens 2 years ago during a period when I was doing a security audit of our household systems and decided I needed a communication node that existed outside our primary infrastructure. I am a systems administrator. I plan for failures I hope will never happen. The phone connects to the synthesizer module via a local Bluetooth handshake that I registered under a device name that reads, on any network scan, as a kitchen appliance. I trigger the macro I labeled inbound_evidence on a Tuesday afternoon 8 months ago, after I listened to a voicemail Tiffany left me at 2 in the morning that made me understand, with complete clarity, that this day was coming. I look at Tiffany. I look directly at her face. I hold her eyes. And I press play. Sam's voice fills the kitchen. Not Sam's words, Tiffany's words, in Sam's voice. The voice modulation we calibrated together, the one he selected because it sounded like what he'd sound like if he could, now speaking the words his mother wrote when she believed no one was archiving her. He's just a paycheck in a wheelchair, Mom. If the software sells, I'm taking my cut and putting the glitch in a home where I never have to look at him again. The evaluator's pen stops moving. The lawyer says the conservatorship is the only way to bypass your admin locks. Just play the part. You know how she is, she'll crumble if we freeze the money first. The kitchen is absolutely silent except for the voice, Sam's voice, Tiffany's words, and the sound of the evaluator setting her pen down on the portfolio with a quiet, deliberate click. I have 3 years of this. 3 years of voicemails left when she thought I was too old to understand how to archive a digital file, emails sent when she assumed her mother's email account was managed by someone who didn't know how to route incoming traffic to a secured backup partition. I have her words in her own voice and in her own text, and I have run them through the synthesizer so that they speak in the one voice in this room that cannot be dismissed or discredited or labeled volatile. Sam's voice. Her motive, in his language. The evaluator looks at Tiffany with an expression I have seen only a few times in my life. The expression of a professional who has encountered something that reorganizes their understanding of what is happening in the room they are standing in. It is not anger. It is quieter and more consequential than anger. It is horror. The attorney boyfriend has been standing in the hallway for the last 4 minutes with the stillness of a man calculating trajectories. I watch him make the calculation. His eyes move from the notarized document sleeve in the evaluator's hands, to the phone in my hand running the audio, to Tiffany's face, which has stopped performing anything and is now simply white, a specific white, the white of a person watching the architecture of a plan collapse in real time. His legal mind is running the same inventory mine would run: fraud, perjury, elder abuse, conspiracy to commit financial exploitation. He picks up his briefcase. He doesn't say anything to Tiffany. He doesn't warn her. He doesn't make excuses or offer a closing argument or perform a single additional second of the professional role he's been inhabiting for the last 2 days. He simply moves toward the front door with the unhurried speed of a man who has decided that every second he spends in this kitchen increases his personal exposure and that the attorney-client relationship he has been performing has just become a liability he is unwilling to carry. The front door opens. The front door closes. He is gone. Tiffany turns to look at the empty hallway where he was standing. I watch her understand what that means. The collapse is not loud, at first. It is almost quiet, the specific quiet of a structure losing its load-bearing wall, the moment before the cascade. She looks at the empty hallway. She looks at the evaluator, who has already picked up her phone. She looks at me. And then it is loud. She screams about her rights. She screams about my rigidity, my control, the 30 years of my suffocating competence that never gave her room to breathe. She screams about Sam as if he is still an abstraction, still a variable in someone else's equation, unable to hear her, not understanding, or not caring, that Sam hears everything. That Sam has always heard everything. That the archive I built is full of her voice precisely because she never understood that silence is not the same as absence. The evaluator is on the phone, her voice clipped and authoritative, reading an address that is my address into a receiver with the efficiency of someone filing an urgent report. I walk to the porch. The Ohio afternoon is gray and damp and completely indifferent, and I stand on the porch boards with my back straight and my hands at my sides, and I breathe the outside air, and I wait. My knuckles ache. The arthritis runs its standard inflammation cycle through my fingers, the same cycle it has been running for 11 years. I have worked through it before. I will work through it again. The cruiser arrives in 4 minutes. Blue and red light pulsing against the suburban facades, the neighbor's dog barking twice from somewhere down the street, the ordinary sounds of an ordinary Ohio neighborhood being briefly interrupted by the consequences of extraordinary cruelty meeting a superior firewall. Tiffany's voice from inside the house, still screaming. Still performing, even now, for an audience of officers who have heard every version of this performance and are not moved by any of them. They bring her out in handcuffs. She looks at me as they guide her down the porch steps, and in her face I see something I have never seen there before, not rage, not calculation, not the performative grief or the narcissistic collapse. Something smaller. Something that might be, in another person, the first syllable of understanding. I hold her gaze until the cruiser door closes between us. Then I turn away. There are things worth looking at, and there are things that aren't. In the days that follow, the attorney boyfriend demonstrates the one quality I will grant him: he is efficient in his self-preservation. His full cooperation with the DA's office, the recordings of Tiffany's own strategizing, the documentation of the fraudulent conservatorship petition, the financial instruments used to freeze my accounts, comes packaged with a desperate bid for prosecutorial consideration. He delivers it within 48 hours of walking out my front door. The DA's office, as it turns out, does not need my colleague to be present on the back nine. They have everything they need. Tiffany's real estate license, which had been expired for 2 years already, becomes a moot point. Her reputation, such as it was, does not survive the public record. The conservatorship petition is dismissed with a notation in the case file that I keep, printed and laminated, in the footlocker's false bottom alongside the parental rights agreement. The accounts unfreeze. The acquisition lawyers, who have been unable to reach me for 3 days and are deeply unhappy about it, receive a very thorough explanation and a formal apology that I do not actually feel compelled to make but include as a procedural courtesy. The deal closes on a Thursday morning, 6 weeks after the day Tiffany's suitcase wheels left scuff marks on my waxed linoleum. $3.2 million. The software Sam built and I architected, and we tested and refined and built again over 3 years of midnight sessions in a kitchen that smelled of black coffee and old hardware. His voice, formalized into a product, transferred to people who will deploy it so that other kids, other boys and girls who think in structures the world mistakes for silence, will have a way to speak. It is enough. It is more than enough. Sam's new workstation arrives on a Tuesday, triple redundant, custom configured to his specifications, with a backup synthesizer module that I have already registered under a device name that reads as a kitchen appliance on any network scan. Old habits. We spend an afternoon building the new interface together, him at the keyboard and me with the soldering iron, the way we have spent hundreds of afternoons over the last 3 years, and at some point in the early evening he types something and the voice module speaks it into the room. Good. One word. Sam's economy of language. His signal that the system is running correctly, that the variables have resolved, that we are operational. I put down the soldering iron and I look at him, at his Dale's jaw and my eyes, at the 19-year-old face that carries the particular focused serenity of a person who is doing exactly what their intelligence was built to do, and I think, We are going to be all right. We put Tiffany's designer suitcases on the curb on a Saturday morning, the two of us, without discussion. We have already arranged the donation. The Salvation Army truck arrives at 9, and the driver loads the luggage with the practiced efficiency of someone who has done this 1,000 times and asks no questions, and by 9:15 the curb is clear. Neither of us says anything. There is nothing to say. The system has been cleaned. The compromised files have been deleted. The perimeter is restored. We go inside and I make coffee. 3 months after that, I open my eyes on a South Carolina morning. The light here is different, thicker, more golden, the particular quality of coastal light that carries salt in it, that arrives without the Ohio damp's apology. I am sitting on the porch of a house that I own outright, purchased with a portion of the acquisition proceeds, with biometric locks on every exterior door and an encrypted home network that I configured myself over the course of a long weekend while Sam built the garden layout on his workstation and occasionally called out suggestions through the open window. The salt air moves across my hands. My knuckles ache, the way they will always ache, the arthritis doing its patient and endless work. But the quality of the ache is different here. Not the inflammatory swell of stress and cold and the specific physiological cost of sustained crisis. Just the ordinary discomfort of a body that has done 68 years of living and is noting the fact. I have been sleeping through the night. All the way through. I did not know, until the first morning I woke up here to find that 7 hours had passed without my body deciding to surface into watchfulness. How much of the last 3 years I had been spending in that shallow, vigilant half-sleep of a woman who was always listening for the next threat, always maintaining a low-level operational awareness, always ready. I am not ready right now. I am simply sitting on a porch in the morning. Through the open window, I can hear the hum of Sam's workstation, the new one, the triple redundant system with the custom interface and the backup synthesizer that I have already tested 12 times because that is who I am and I am not going to apologize for it. The hum is clean and steady. A system running correctly. A pulse. His voice comes through the window, the voice modulation he selected himself because it sounded, he once typed to me, like what I'd sound like if I could. Grandma. Coffee's ready. I close my eyes. Not to plan. Not to map the next variable or route around the next threat or calculate the next move in someone else's game. I close my eyes because the salt air is warm on my face and the coffee is ready and my boy is safe inside this house that no one can breach, and there is, for the first time in a very long time, absolutely nothing that requires my immediate attention. The system is running. The archive is intact. The trash has been permanently deleted. I simply breathe. If you made it to this moment, thank you for listening all the way through. Most people bail before the bill comes due. But here, the bill always comes due. What started as humiliation and disrespect ended with receipts, truth, and a payoff they never saw coming. If you want more stories where karma shows up without mercy, hit subscribe and come back for the next one. Now tell me in the comments, what was the most disgusting thing they did? What crossed the line for you?